Hello, it's Steve Mills here. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here on the Success in Table Tennis podcast. I set up the podcast not that long ago now. I think it's probably a couple of months. I think this is the sort of show number 11. I've interviewed several of the top players from my past, people like Des Douglas, Alan Cook, Dan Seemiller, who was the American #1. It was great to connect with him. And today I've got a gentleman who I've pretty much known since I was about, 16 or 17. So it's a few years ago. And his name is Nigel Eckersley. Now, Nigel was an England international table tennis player, is in the top 6 in England for pretty much a decade. So he was very consistent playing at that level. So welcome, Nigel. It's great to have you here. And thank you ever so much for your time.
Well, it's great to be here. Great to see you again. And yeah, happy to have a good chat.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. It should be some good fun. So I know, Nigel, you had some fantastic achievements in your career, but just to kick things off, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about, some of the highlights, some of the great things that you managed to achieve in your table tennis career?
Okay, well, the thing that I started off on the wrong foot was I started off playing table tennis at 17, which is
right. Okay, right.
And a lot of players start when they're 8 and 9.
Yeah.
By the time they're 17,
you had a bit of catch up to play. Yeah,
definitely. So that was a bad start, but I made up for it because once I got hooked by table tennis, by its spins and the way you could play and the speed of it, I practiced, and that was the key. Just within 2 or 3 years, I'd got to almost England standard by just practicing all the time. Wow. But what I did do was, where most people had to work, I sort of worked. I was in the car business, and I used to spray cars for a month, do them up, run it, play table tennis for a month, and then start again. So every other month, I was practicing.
You were practicing pretty much full time from a. Yeah.
So started late, but made up for it by lots and lots of practice. Yeah. As you know, he used to come over to Manchester and practice with us, and we used to get all the best players from the Northwest, even Scotland. They used to come down. And practice.
They did.
So
yeah.
We had a great
Canada. I remember. Players joining us from Canada and Australia, all over the place, really.
It was, everybody knew about Manchester YMCA.
Yeah.
But getting back to my sort of achievements, my best achievement was in 1982 playing in the Commonwealth Games in Bombay, which was some experience in itself.
Yeah.
And I won 2 gold medals, team event and mixed doubles with Joy Grundy. And it was a fantastic tournament, and I lost to 1 player the whole tournament.
Wow.
So all through the team event, I only lost to the top Hong Kong player, who was an ex-Chinese player. But the worst thing was the first round of the singles.
You played him. Did you?
And he was the same player style as me. He had anti-loop on the backhand, so he had a very dead rubber on the backhand.
Yeah. Very
spinny on the forehand. So he played just the same style as I did, but he was just that bit better.
Yeah.
And being ex-Chinese, they understand the game better than anybody. So I lost to him in the first round, but that meant I could just chill out and relax for the rest.
And watch the rest of the
But when I look back, I wished I'd had a chance in the singles, but he was the only player that I couldn't beat. But the key thing was, in the men's team event, I was actually the number 3 in the team.
Okay.
And in the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final, it was 4-all each match, and I had to play the final.
Wow.
So 4-all in every match. I won all 3 of them, obviously, and I won them all 2 straight.
Right.
Absolutely no problem, because the pressure was on both of us. But the one thing I was always good at was playing under pressure.
I was just going to say, Nigel, I remember, I mean, you for me were like the consummate professional. I always thought, you know, you know, there was no messing around with you. You know, when you were on the table, you were totally focused. Your practice ethic was so incredibly high, and your fitness as well. You're, you know, pretty much probably the fittest of all the table tennis players, I would suggest. But probably above that even was, you know, when I interviewed Des a few weeks ago, I said to him, you know, he very kindly mentioned, you know, how I'd taken him close so many times we played, you know, and and I said to him, yeah, but you always found a way, Des, didn't you? You know, I remember, you know, when Des was nearly beaten by Graham Sanley in the English closed, and he always found a way. And you were the same. You were a bugger, you know. You'd always, you know, if it got to deuce in the fifth, and I'm stood watching you, I'm thinking, Nigel's going to win this, and 8 out of 10 times you probably did. And I think that's a real, you know, key to being successful. What do you think that comes down to? How you know, I do believe, and you know, you maybe back me up with this, that your conversion rate at tough times, you know, when the chips are down, or even when, you know, it is incredibly close, you won a lot of matches. Why? What do you think?
Yeah. I know exactly why, because the two things that go together are physical fitness and mental strength. And if you become really fit, physically strong, it gives you a mental strength. So because I used to spend so much time at the YMCA would practice 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, and they had a gym upstairs. So when everybody went home, I went upstairs and did an hour's training in the gym. So I do my weight training.
I can remember you dragging me around there.
Well, do you remember they had an indoor running track?
I do indeed.
And 44 laps was a mile. Okay, so can you imagine? So I used to come off the track lopsided, because, you know, you're going around so many corners.
It was only very small. It was like on the balcony, wasn't it?
And you weren't allowed to do 20 one way and go back the other way. You had to go, it was always one way. Other people would come up the stairs.
Yeah, everybody had one leg longer than the other, didn't they?
So you couldn't go on your left side for half an hour and then go on the right side, which would have been great. So I think I'm slightly lopsided.
Yeah, I think I am.
But being concentrating on, I used to love training. It was never hardship. People say, oh, you know, I don't like training, I don't want to get in the gym, but I just loved going in the gym, getting some weights, do some training. It was never heavy weight. I didn't ever want to be muscle bound. I just wanted to be toned up. And that gives you mental toughness. You know, the physical, especially when you do running as well. When you're running and you're absolutely exhausted, that extra 2 or 3 minutes that you push yourself. It's like when you're in a close competition at table tennis, you just dig
and
in.
You're at the end, and you know, you're in the final. It's 9 o'clock at night, and you've been playing for 2 days, and you're, you know, really, really tired, and like everybody is, and that sort of gave you the edge. I remember, Nigel, I don't know whether you recall this, but I think the first time we ever spoke was at the South Yorkshire Open, and I'd just played Chris Rogers in the final of the juniors, the under 17s, and I think you played him in the final of the seniors. Chris had a really good tournament, getting, you know, as a young man, getting to the final of both. And I sort of nervously, I remember, came up to you and said, you know, would it be okay for us to have a practice? Because I think at the time I was like ranked, I don't know, 50 in England, and you were, you know, certainly probably around 6, 7, 5, something like that. I don't know. You know, I remember, you know, I think one of the best things that I ever did as far as getting me to that sort of high level was to surround myself with the best possible players that I could, you know, yourself, John Hilton, Dave Constance, and even players like Phil Bowen, you know, and so on. And, you know, I'm sure that if I'd have stayed practicing in Sheffield, where I was pretty much the best player anyway, you know, I'd have never got to the level that I did. So I really do think, you know, one of the things that, you know, any juniors listening today should take from this is surround you, go and be the worst player in the room, basically. You know, and work your blooming socks off to beat the guys who are better than you. I also think that the way we used to practice there, you know, particularly, I mean, you and I used to go down and do drills and things from 9 till 12 and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And then in the afternoon, it was pretty much games. But the way we used to practice, I'm sure you'll remember, was we played 1 game to 21, winner stops on. And when you're in a room with, you know, people like yourself and John and others, you know, it's blooming hard to stop on. And so it gets incredibly competitive. You know, there's no niceties. There's, you know, people would, it was almost, nice. You know, you're like, you know, every single point, you know, it was like playing in the final of a tournament and you're only on a, you know, Wednesday afternoon practice session. And I think that did us both good as well.
But what that does is that teach you how to win.
Yes.
You know, you can be the best player, you can have great technique, you can be fit. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to win. And win or stay on, although it was cruel for those that very rarely stayed on. So they're sat down a lot. But they're also watching and seeing how we do. But the win or stay on position was great because you fought for every game. You fought to stay on because if you sat down, you're going to be down for an hour. You're going to be out for an hour. You know, there was always 6 or 7 or 8 of us waiting to play. And then if you were down for an hour, you were thinking, oh, how am I going to play? I hope he doesn't stay on. And you know, it was a great grounding. But I can understand the few players that didn't quite make it because they didn't get a lot of time on the table.
Well, you and John probably played more than anybody, didn't you? Without a doubt.
Well, I think we did, and that kept us fit as well because we were playing so many matches. So it was, the YMCA. I mean, it's just sad that it's no longer there, but that was what kept us all
it's gone, is it? All right. I didn't know. 20 years ago, they knocked it down and built a hotel. It was prime location. It was right in the center. Right in the center of Manchester.
Right in the center. And they built a new YMCA, a brand new one, about half a mile down the road. And I never, when that finished, I never went to it. So I've never been to the new YMCA. The old one was just fantastic.
It was like one of those. It was one of those places, wouldn't it? It was like the place where Rocky Balboa went to the gym, wasn't it? You know, it was like, you know, there was no frills, not a very nice place, bit of a smelly joint, you know, and you got the old boys playing in the league matches and on their table, and then there was us there, and some real characters as well that I'm sure we can remember, people like Jeff
but I mean, it's a great
people like ground. That. It really was, and as you say, you know, it was like the place in the north of England, certainly, where all the best players sort of congregated and sort of practiced. So I wanted to ask you, you know, this is all about, you know, we're doing a bit of reminiscing, but ultimately the purpose of it is to really try to help you know, juniors and younger players who are wanting to, you know, they're not finished yet. You know, they want to raise their game, become better. Perhaps, you know, one of them might one day become world champion. Who knows? You never know. And so I've always believed myself that if I'd only known back then what I know now, you know, I could have been a lot better player. You know, the training we did, you know, my food that I ate, you know, stuff like that. You know, you know, I was talking to Don Parker. Don, for anybody who's not aware, was a similar standard to Nigel, really top 6 player in England for many years, became England national coach. And he said, do you know, with the knowledge we had and the training we did and the coaching we had, we did really well, but you know, it compared with what people know now, you know, we're a long way behind. And I suppose that's the same in most sports, isn't it, really?
For sure. I mean, we didn't have YouTube, did we?
No,
we didn't have YouTube.
No.
I mean, I watch an hour of Chinese table tennis on YouTube literally every day. The things you can learn from YouTube is just.
I know. But funnily enough, my dad, who's now 87, phoned me up the other day and he said, "Oh, do you know?" He said, "I was watching these people serving on YouTube." He said some of them are like absolutely unbelievably. You know, just at a different level, and you can watch that and learn from it.
Yeah, they show the Japanese players who seem to have they play fun shots. They play the fastest serve possible.
Yeah. That's what he was saying.
It's unbelievable what they can do.
I know.
Some great stuff on there. But I think what the thing that I did wrong was when I first started. Well, I never ever was coached, so I never had a coach. But everything was self-taught. And the problem with that is that you learn poor techniques. And what I used to do was I used to go to a tournament and I'd watch the better players. And I'd think, now that's how I want to get my forehand. So I'd go back and train and I'd change my technique. And then 3 or 4 months later, I'd see somebody better again than the original guy. And I think, he's got a much better topspin or a much better backspin. And I'd change it again. So I was always tweaking and changing my shots and my technique. And so I must have wasted 2 or 3 years playing the wrong strokes because I hadn't had the correct coaching. It's all self-taught. And a lot of, I mean, all the Manchester lads, none of us had coaching. Nobody was coached. It seemed in London there were good coaches, but up north there weren't coaches that you could think, they'd do me some good. And so I'd always suggest to the up and coming player that they get a really good coach, who's fairly local, but who teaches them the right technique. Because the earlier you learn the correct technique, the farther you can get. I'd
also add to that and say, try and get some, pretty much what hopefully they're doing now, get some advice from former players. There's a lot of really good, nice coaches. I'm not saying anything against them. They played at local league level and they've decided to become a coach, and they're good and they're sincere and, great people. But they've not played at that elite level, and it's important, I think, to at least not necessarily have them as your coach, but to have them there as somebody you can talk to and advise. I'm actually advising a young guy at the moment down in Southampton, who's a pretty good player. He's about 17. Jack, and he's potentially he could be a really good player. And I'm not his coach. He's got a coach. I've not got time to practice with him all day, but I do advise him. And I keep giving him tips, and he seems to like that. And he subscribes to this, so that's good. So he'll appreciate me mentioning him. And but I think it's a really important thing.
So I think getting a coach and getting the right technique, and then also you've got to have better players to play against. If you're playing with lesser players, it's too easy. You're not going to advance. You need to be played not too better, not players that you just have.
You don't want to get hammered off the table, do you?
No, but you want somebody just that next level up. That'll help raise you up. And then as you get better, you need better practice. But you can't substitute time on the table. I mean, you need to train, but you've got to have that time. The more you practice, the better you become.
There's no way around it, is there?
There's no shortcut.
There's no shortcut.
No.
I mean, you can have all the all the talent you want. I mean, you and I were you know, reasonably talented players. I think, you know, you had lots of great touch and great serves and footwork and fitness and talent around that. But there's different types of talent, isn't there? I had speed. You know, I was just naturally quick. You know, I could take it early, and I played a very different game. But it doesn't matter what type of talent or how talented you are. You and I could probably name 20 players that were maybe more talented than you and I that never got anywhere near to our level because they didn't beat on their craft, did they? They didn't put the sort of time in, you know. And
but it's always the same. You see the most talented players can't put the work in.
No, they're talented. And it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. But you watch a talented junior, and they very rarely get through to the senior level and get to the same level because it's a different. You know, you've got to. It does take a different thinking to
it does, and it also there's that period of time. I think when you are young and like you're 15 or 16 and you're like top in England, and then all of a sudden you're 18 and you're like nowhere in England. You know, you're not in the top.
Start all over again.
You've got to start all over again,
and that's what's tough.
Yeah,
that's what's tough.
But
just getting back to for what is important for younger players coming up.
Please,
as we talked upon the fitness side, the fitness is so important at this level now. And you watch some of the Chinese players, and they're unbelievable. They've got fantastic muscle tone. They're so quick. Everybody plays close to the table now, so you've got to be that much faster. But so you need to train away from the table. Not just on the table. No. So, you know, you need to set an hour a day or whatever and train away from the table. You know, whether it's light weights, whether it's running, whether it's flexibility, you know, yoga, Pilates. You know, you need with table tennis, you need a bit of everything. You know, you need the fitness needs to be across the board, not a specific fitness.
No.
And but then if you become really fit, then the mental aptitude comes along. You start becoming stronger. And the other thing is, when you see a player that you're about to play and you can tell they're not really that fit, that gives you the edge. You think, if it's a long game, I'm going to outlast them. I'm going to be stronger when it's close. And that is, I think, again, really important key for the younger player to improve.
I totally agree. I think that's you know, really powerful statement there. You've just got to, you know, I often talk in business about raising your game, not necessarily a game of table tennis, but just improving what you do. And I always remember once listening to Ivan Lendl, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it was such a powerful interview. And somebody said to him, why was it that he'd been #1 in the world longer than anybody ever had? That was back in the day, obviously before Federer and Nadal turned up. You know, what was the difference between him and everybody else? And he said, every day since I was 8 years old, I've done far more than anybody else could possibly expect. I don't compete with other people. I compete with the best I could be. And I remember that from like 10 years ago, him saying that. And you know, if you could do that as a young player, just think, right, I'm going to do, you know, if you train the same as everybody else, guess what? You get the same results, don't you? So you got to do more.
Push yourself that bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Yeah.
Des was saying that one of the difference was that, you know, exactly what you've said, but the other point he made, that the real top players, the players in the top 10, were all full-time professional players. And often the guys who were ranked, you know, 18, 20, you know, people like that weren't full time, and that was often the difference.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So out of all the things that you said, what would be your I think you've sort of given them really, but your top 3 tips. So it's the fitness, that would be one.
The fitness, which gives you mental strength as well.
Yeah.
And it's getting a good coach early on.
Yeah.
So that you've got the right technique. Because if you're practicing all day long, or however many hours you put in, 2 hours, whatever, if you're practicing the wrong things, they're just going to get worse, So the technical side, you have to have the right technique. And I think that they're the most important thing. Wow. Also, the last thing is you need to get a better player than yourself to practice with.
Yeah.
And also these days, when we were playing, there was lots of different styles. There were the twiddlers with the rackets, there were the defensive, there were top spinners, there were the hitters. Now it's all power and off the bounce, early,
short little shots.
Also, the other thing that's really different when I watch on YouTube is that most of the players now serve middle or long.
Yes,
there's very few. Timo Bowles is an exception, but there's very few that serve like we used to do, as tight as we could, as short as we could, because the touch now in the game is they're so good at keeping it tight. Yeah. And as soon as there's an opening, they're so good at killing the ball first attempt. And we didn't have that. We were we were playing rallies. We played rallies. Now 3 or 4 or 5 shots is a rally. Which is a shame, but that's the way it's gone. And in our day, we used to have the defenders to play, and we used to have lots and lots of long rallies.
There was much more variety, wasn't there? There was the sort of forehand loopers like yourself and people like Paul Day and so on, and then the sort of hitters, like myself and Des, who were up to the table sort of play. Although Des also had a really good topspin, and then the defenders, the all-rounders, the steady players, and so on. So I think these days it's much more focused, isn't it?
It's a real shame that every new rule that's come out has been bad for the defender. It's almost killed off the defender. I mean, there are half a dozen world-class defenders, but they have to be unbelievable with their forehand attack.
Yes,
they're
very, very good, aren't they? Attacking.
They're great to watch, but it's a shame that the defender has basically died off. I don't know whether we've got any defenders in England. I really in the young category. I honestly don't know.
I've not seen any. Seen any.
No, fortunately, we've still got a few in the veterans. So
a few in the veterans.
That keeps us going.
So speaking of veterans, I know you've had lots of success over many, many years. You're one of the few players, I think I'm right in saying this, Nigel, who never ritired. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. So you've played literally since you were 17.
The reason for that, well, I started late, so I wanted to just keep playing, but I just love competing. And what's great about the veterans is you can carry on competing. You're in your own age group, so you're playing like standard players. And it's great. It's as if I've just been able to carry on my career. Although obviously don't make any money, and you got to pay no. But I just love competing.
Your love of the sport always shone. You could tell by the way you played, and how much you enjoyed it. So long may that continue, mate.
It's a passion. It's a passion. I mean, I'm 70 next year.
Wow.
So my goal is to win the world championships in the veterans in the over 70s.
Over 70s.
It sounds wicked, and it sounds as if that's not much of a big deal. But when you actually go to these championships, it's unbelievable. The standard in every age group is fantastic.
I mean, it doesn't matter what age group, does it? If if you can say Nigel Eckersley, world table tennis champion, that That's
I just hope it's not in the 90s. I hope I get there.
I tell you what, I'm sure you'll still be trying if it is.
I'll be playing, even if it's from my bed.
The over 100s table tennis champion.
Well,
I'm sure it'll be before then.
We were in Sweden for the Veterans World Championships 10 years ago, and they introduced the first over 100 competitor.
Did they? But really?
He was so miffed because there was only over 90s. There was no over 100. So he obviously lost first round to a young
90-year-old. Yeah.
And he wasn't happy. But
no. But
there aren't many over 100s, but there's a few over 90s.
Are there? Yeah. Wow. Right. It's remarkable, isn't it? And long may it continue. I think it's brilliant that you're still playing. As you know, I'm back playing. I literally didn't play for 30 years, but I decided a little bit like you. I thought, I'm coming up to 60. I'll start practicing and see how well I can do in the world over 60s. And so I practiced for 18 months really hard, and then blooming COVID came along, didn't it?
I know.
So it all got cancelled. I spent 18 months training really hard.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Just start again.
Yeah. Well, I actually said it was good because I was nowhere near good enough. I wouldn't have done very well, I don't think, because...
but the standard is, when you go to these world championships, you can't believe the standard. The 40s are playing like 20-year-olds. It is fantastic.
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
Anybody who gets to 40, join the veterans.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I've really enjoyed the few tournaments I've played, and I'm playing Southampton League and stuff like that, which I enjoy. And the two of us potentially going to get together in the over 60s national league. So let's hope that all goes ahead. Yeah. Anyway, I'll not take any more of your time. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Thanks for being an inspiration to me personally, right throughout my table tennis career. And let's hope we meet in the final, not in the over 70s. I'm far too young for that, but in a world final at some point, let's say.
That would be great.
Perhaps playing in the doubles together. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Playing in the doubles together.
In the doubles. Yeah. Well, left and right handers, perfect.
So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so thank you ever so much, Nige, and I'll just turn the program off. And thanks very much for listening, everybody. By the way, if you are listening and you want to get some more information, some more tips, I'm trying to get round everybody, all the guys that I used to know that got a wealth of experience, and I'm sure can really help you. So I'm going to be speaking to some other, real top international players and getting their sort of take on what it takes to be successful. So stay tuned. If you're not yet followed or subscribed to my podcast, then please do so. Success in Table Tennis with Steve Mills. Thanks very much for listening.